What's up, Wholesale Nation? I'm Andy Speed.
And I'm Undrea King.
And we've got a special guest for you today. He's a local legend. He doesn't get out much these days, but when I started in the business, he was at every meetup. You know, he had a different business at the time. He was the go-to for foundations here in Houston. Mm-hmm. But the first time that we actually got a chance to talk was after the 2-day weekend of Right Path. You know, we went to the first 2
Tom
day.
Perry and Jason Bible, nice guys.
And then that's actually where Undrea and I met. Not the same one. He came in a little bit later. But we met in the we talked in the parking lot afterwards, and at the time I had just finished my 7th deal. I think I had 2 or 3 under contract, and we were talking in the parking lot. And you guys put together a group and said, "Hey,
we were smoking in the parking lot."
We were smoking in the parking lot. Yeah.
So telling all their bad habits.
Yeah, that's exactly.
You invited me out to your farm, and when I showed up, and there was a bunch of guys there, and there's just a bunch of heavy hitters in Houston, and the wealth of knowledge. And I've actually talked about not the group specifically, but the experience where it's like, man, I'm looking around like I do not fit in here. These guys are local legends, and they're doing massive amounts of deals.
Right. You guys are obviously a part of it, and we kind of opened it up a little more, but it used to be real secretive because we wanted to have conversations that were at a higher level. And so we basically got together so we could start talking about it. And it wasn't ever a conversation. And not that you shouldn't have those, because we all went through that. But you get past the point of, should I send the yellow letter or the postcard? It was now more about, hey, my title's blowing out. What title company are you using? This contractor's charging me this. So it was at that point at higher level kind of problems. And it was a mixture. That's the other thing, too, that we brought in wholesalers. We brought in rehabbers. We brought in apartment. I mean, we got people that have
lenders,
mobile homes. Yeah.
Educators.
So, and we started all that because I'm real big into horses. I like training horses. And a couple of friends of ours, mutual friends, that we would go out there to ride horses on a Wednesday. And we're like, well, dude, we should bring some steaks. And started grilling out. And, hey, can I invite so-and-so? And, hey, can I invite so-and-so? And, I mean, by the time we figured it out, it was about 20 people out there going out there.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. The information that's shared. I mean, you kind of went low on it with the title companies and that stuff, the contractors. That stuff is shared, but the higher level conversation and the feedback that you get,
right.
Like
the accountability that group has.
Like we went out and had a couple of drinks the other night, and you and Mark both actually called me the next day and apologized. You're like, hey man, sorry, we were so tough on you. Yeah. But sometimes you need that, and the honesty in the group and the feedback is great because the guys in the business are obviously just killing it.
Yeah, right. And I want to give a shout out to the guys because just again, mutual friends of ours. You guys are part of the group. We the thing when you come there is you got to have a backbone. If you have something to say, you got to stand behind it and defend your point. And so we challenge that. Like, why are you thinking that? Why is it that you're doing it that way? And we've belonged to masterminds together. And you guys still do. You don't get that individually. And so when we've gone out to masterminds across the country, they keep telling me, it's like, dude, you guys have that like every week. Like, we don't get together once a quarter. We get together like almost every week. And so that's one thing that, it started from really just messing around, having some drinks, but it grew from there to the point where we now, everyone that's part of the group can attribute some of their growth to the group.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of business model shifts. I know Mark's made some massive shifts. You've made some massive shifts.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Right. I mean, that's the other side too, right? You experience ups and downs. I mean, and what's funny is we're all competitors.
Yeah,
we're all
right.
competitors, but we openly share, and the reason is because at the end of the day, we don't do business the same way. I mean, we're wholesalers, and I know we were talking last night with other wholesalers, Ricardo, and the way they do business and the way we do business, just almost nothing other than the fact that we're contracting a house through a real estate contract. Right. Almost everything else is different. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that kind of brings us to the point. So Alex has been in the business for a long time, right? So I think you said like 20 years you had been flipping before this.
My first property, I bought it in, I want to say it was August of 2001. It was a condo that I got from, so I went through a Russ Whitney course. Okay. Yeah,
so that wasn't OG,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it told you to go in the newspaper and find somebody selling owner finance. And I called him and he said he wanted $5,000 down. And that's what I had in my bank account. Like, I'll take it. And at that point I was renting. And it cost me the same amount of money to buy than to rent. So I did it, and that's got me launched into real estate. I will say, I don't know. So I'll tell you a little bit of backstory about me is, I was born in Mexico, moved to San Francisco when I was a kid, and I grew up in San Francisco, and I was in all kinds of businesses, right? It's serial entrepreneurs, never one. So one of the business I had was a carpet cleaning business, and I do a lot of work for for real estate agents and real estate investors out there. And they were nice people, and they would also, man, you're young, you should get in real estate. And so I started looking at that. On top of that, I also have, for lack of a better word, a construction background, because I liked it. I was in wood shop I was in drafting, all that stuff in high school.
Right.
And so my wood shop teacher was a contractor, an actual contractor on the side, and he was telling me all this, man, you would be great, you would be good to do this. And so I kind of would go along with him on just to check projects out and stuff. And so, I mean, I got a lot of that when I was young. And so when I decided to get into what would I say, I guess, a career path, because I moved here in July of 2000, June actually of 2000.
To Houston.
Yeah,
right.
To Houston. It was because I wanted to try to have a business here and figure out a way to get into real estate. But I never saw real estate as a business. I always saw it as an investment.
Right.
So I didn't think that was going to be the moneymaker for me. It was just how I was going to grow wealth.
Right.
And so that's how I got here. And again, I had a carpet cleaning business out in California. I drove it here. I drove my van and everything here to have it here. And so I started getting into it. And of course, running across investors, doing so that's clientele that I had. I would go work for investors.
Right.
And so I started learning about clubs, Rich Club, and so on, so to speak. And, from
so
there,
the Rich Club, for those who are not in Houston area, is like a real estate, like a RIA.
Right.
Right. So a real estate investment club for people to go out and check it out.
It was the biggest RIA in the country at that time. It was like over 3,000 members. It was crazy back then. As opposed to now where we have literally a meetup every week here in Houston, every day of the week. Almost.
Yeah, you can go somewhere just about every day.
Right. We were talking about that last night. So back then it was once a month, right? It was once a month. And they had little focus groups, but man, they would go into a Hilton hotel down in the U of H, and it was 3,000 people in there. It was massive. And so I saw an opportunity to try to contract for those people, and I started a contracting company. And so I started rehabbing houses for investors.
Okay.
Again, it's crazy because I was sitting in the room when they were getting all this education, and it never dawned on me that I should be flipping houses.
Yeah, right. You should be that guy.
Let me go do jobs for these people,
right?
You
saw a need, and you said, I'm just going to go fill this need, but didn't think about what you could actually be doing.
Never thought about it. So, man, I fast forward.
That's because you were a serial entrepreneur, so you're always thinking, how can I make money in this situation?
Also, the capacity that you see yourself in sometimes, it's one of the biggest things that this group and just in general, right, I've learned is the container you have is how big you're going to grow. That's as much as you can fill it. So if you don't expand your mind, even if you learn today, a year from now, that's when you're going to have the capacity to fill it in. But you now created a bigger cup, so you'll have that void to allow for stuff to come in there. And so if you don't do that, then at the end of the day, you're never going to be ready or prepared.
Right.
That's actually a point that I've made on the show a couple of times, and it was from this group that it came to me. There was some information that I was receiving that I was not ready to hear yet.
Right.
And so,
You know what I hate is every time, I'm going to be pet peeve about it, but every time it says, well, we're part of Mastermind, I was like, what Mastermind? Dude, it's called Top Gun, right? So let's just kind of say it out loud.
Well, it used to be a secret, so I'm like, man.
we didn't know, like,
society, right? Yeah.
I thought somebody sniped you out if you said it.
What's funny is a lot of
tell
friends.
anybody about Top Gun, you get kicked out of Top Gun. It's like, don't tell anybody about Top Gun.
First rule about Top Gun. So the funny thing is we did it that way because we had a lot of mutual friends. The reason it was secret is we had a lot of mutual friends, and not everyone was invited because one of the rules is if somebody has a problem with you in the group, you can't come into the group. So every time we asked for somebody to join the group, it got vetted through the group, and so it had to be almost a unanimous vote on. So, but now everybody knows about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why. If you don't expand your mind, you're never going to be able to. I guess, for lack of a better word, grow. But it's not about growth sometimes. It's just if you're not growing, you're really falling back, right?
Right.
And what people don't realize, like, well, I'll just stay. That's one of the things that happened to me later in life. But if you're not growing, you literally start going backwards.
Right.
And you don't realize it till it's too late. And so now you got to chase forward just to get back to where you were before. So.
Right. Yeah. In most cases, you can't really just, people say maintain. That's usually not the case, right? Yeah. You can't really maintain. Usually you're either going up or you're going down, right? Yep. And so for you, you got into the construction business, right?
Did that for
years.
other
real estate investors. How long did you do that?
By the way, along the way, I flipped, right?
Okay.
So I was flipping a couple houses a year through that. And I did that till about 2008. And no, I take that back, 2006. And the reason I say that is because two things happened in 2006. I started a foundation repair company called Trinity Foundation, and I had that for years. And so I started that. And at the same time, so that started, it's actually more lucrative than contracting, right? That was the first thing. So I was able to supplement my income from the construction business with the foundation business, and it didn't require me being there all the time. And then at that point, I started going towards flipping houses. So that's when the light went off and said, hey, maybe I can flip some houses too, right?
Right.
Well, I picked the worst time ever.
Yeah, the turn of the market.
That wasn't a great time.
So needless to say, I got stuck with a couple houses and then turned them into rentals for a while, and had great lenders who are still friends of mine, and still borrow money from them. But basically, at that point, I had to run out. What's funny, so even the foundation company, we only worked for investors, and what happened is the investment market dried up. The buyers, right? So the investors dried up. So I was in a scramble to try to figure out what to do, and we were only in Houston, so I decided to go across the state.
Right.
So I ended up calling a few friends who I knew were in San Antonio, and they got me in contact with the investors over there. So started doing work over there, and then from there we went to Dallas. And at one point we were the second largest foundation company in Texas, other behind Old Shed. So and we did. I mean, I've fixed so many foundations. It's not even funny, right?
And you basically started every foundation company that's currently in Houston through guys that worked for you,
right?
Which in our conversations,
I love them all, by the way.
Trained up the competition.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any bad blood. I've actually seen you to run into a few, but it's interesting that when you got into the investment space, so we'll fast forward a little bit, and mind you, in the construction side, you could get jobs done cheaper than anybody I know. So I'm like, man, this is your core competency. And at first I'm like, why are you doing anything other than flipping? You're like, no, man, I want the quick money. I don't want the headache. But you went from flipping to wholesaling. Right. And then when you started, just from our history, I know that you had this, I don't want to train my competition mindset for at least 2 years.
Oh, yeah. No, it's still having now.
You still have it.
Oh, dude, you can't just, you can't change a bad habit that much, right?
Right,
so it's there and you have to recognize it sometimes. But, so let me tell you why I went into wholesaling, right? So I was flipping, so he mentioned that I was flipping. I had a partner who basically we did about 10 deals a year. Okay. And he funded everything. And this is all while I still had the foundation company, so it was part-time in essence. But thank God I've always had really good employees on the construction side. I still have them. They're still been with me. And so we were doing, 300-400K type properties back when now you hear that and it's starting to become normal, right?
Right.
Back then, my house was $100,000 house, right? And so we were flipping $300,000-$400,000 houses. And so two things happened is he expanded my mind. Like I could never see myself flipping one of those houses because I never see myself living in it. And so that was the biggest challenge I had. So that's when I started getting into it. And what happened is he got sick. So I was the laborer, so to speak. So I was the one fixing the houses, controlling the rehab, and then he was the realtor. He was the one that found the properties. He was the one that got the funding. And when he got sick, it just disappeared overnight. Because he got sick overnight.
Right.
And so I was like, holy shit, what do I do now, right? So I had to, first of all, I had to solve the immediate problem, right? Because that's what happens first is you got to figure out how to get out of. So we had to liquidate every asset we had together because of his wife's request. And the second thing I did, I should say, is try to find another alternative, right? So how do I do this? So at that point, I realized immediately I needed to learn how to market for properties.
Right. And
so I started talking to friends. So here's, golden nugget kind of thing. The first thing I did is like, dude, how do I find properties? I'll split them with you. And so I went out there and I started doing all the work. I mean, that's all I know how to do is work, right? So immediately, boom, driving for dollars. I actually had so luckily I didn't come from a place of no money, no credit kind of thing. I was able to put money towards marketing, meaning I threw out, I think I did some bandit signs and I think we did some mail outs, but driving for dollars was a big thing for us.
Right. And what year was this?
The beginning of 2014.
Okay.
And so while I was doing that, I ended up, I think we did like 4 transactions. I think I did 2 with one guy and 2 with another guy.
Okay.
No, 1 with one guy and 3 with another guy. And one of them's a friend of mine, Nathan. Shouts out. He's probably in the middle of.
There you go. He's on vacation.
He's somewhere. He's on a permanent vacation. Him and Ryan. So shouts out to them. Anyway, first thing that happened was we got some really big checks. I mean, the first check we got was a $63,000 assignment. And we split it 50-50.
And you didn't have to flip the house to get it.
No, that was what blew my mind. Right. But what I also learned very quickly was, it's a compounding of all, of sales experience from having to sell carpet cleaning and this and that. And just, I was comfortable sitting in people's living rooms, right? Having been in sales that way before. And so, I mean, it came natural to me. It was just easy to close. And so, and I was easy to relate to these people, right? So from there, he just get me on the phone and start talking to people. And then from one of the guys that I actually paid him to help me, show me how to do some marketing. And we got I think we got one deal together. He was the one that told me about Flip to Freedom and Sean Terry.
Right.
And so and I asked him, I said, do you think that's good, man? He goes, oh, hell yeah, you got to do it. And so at the end of 2014, in fact, I've said this a bunch of times, but I literally bought the course on December 29th. And it was during the
online
year
course and everything.
Yeah, the New Year, you
got the discount.
Yeah, you got me with that. Right. But what's funny is I was ready to give him my money anyway, right? So, but I bought it.
I did the same thing on like Memorial Day.
And I went through it, dude. And I went through it like I started December, and I just literally spent the entire weekend going. My wife was like, "Are you ever going to come out of the rooms?" Like, yeah, eventually, right? But I'll tell you what I did, and I've said this also before. As I was going through it, it said, okay, set this up. So I would go in and set that up. I'd go create a Google account, go create this, or create a mailing campaign. So having been through, as being in the foundation business, I sponsored a lot of events, right? A lot of events like networking events and stuff.
Right,
all of them.
I've heard, a lot of money, I had heard, where to get lists, how to do that. So I had all that information already.
Right, because you were around it. Yeah.
Didn't know what to do with it, right? Yeah. So when Sean put it together and I understood it, and it made just follow directions. To me, it was follow directions. Pay with numbers.
Right.
I just did it, and I turned on Google AdWords, literally on New Year's Eve or the first or second of the year.
Right.
And I just boom, it exploded.
Right.
So I did 16 deals the first month.
That's awesome.
Now that's before Google AdWords was sexy, right?
First month?
Yeah, first month.
16 deals first month.
First year we went bananas, dude. I did 132 deals that year.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the crazy thing, like the thing about Sean's training, he's probably the first one to put it together to where you can go through a course. And he also, like with Google AdWords, he even gave you like what he was using in his Google AdWords.
The exact AdWords to target and everything. Yeah.
So like you said, if you could follow instructions, you could do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing I learned with that, what's funny is, I don't know if it was ever a challenge for me, but I never really saw it as a learning platform. But I learned how to learn off of YouTube, right? So everybody talks about YouTube University. Call it what you want. Some people may think it's okay. Some people don't. I've heard both sides of it. It's just a matter of how you learn, right? So I can learn by myself. I like to read. I like to learn by myself. So I don't have to be in a classroom environment, right? Or I don't need people explaining it to me. I'd rather go try it, mess it up, and come back and find out, okay, what did I mess up? To me, you're never going to get it perfect. We talk about hiring people. When you hire, hire your first person as fast as possible, because they're always going to fail because you don't know how to manage them.
Yeah,
it's not them, it's you. Hire them and fire them. And not because you want to fire them, it's just you're destined to fail. So I always see it that way. And I tell everyone that works for me, look, do it. You're going to mess it up. It doesn't matter. Don't try to overlearn it. Just do it. Go mess it up. And then the one thing you mess up, I guarantee you'll never make that mistake again.
Right.
Because it zapped you, right? So you'll start getting it and learning. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about action. If there's anything you'll ever hear about me is I'm over action.
Yeah.
I hear something, I'm on my way to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's go do it. Absolutely. That's 100% ours right there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the last 2 years in wholesaling, because I know you've gone through a lot of shifts in your business. You've grown as an individual. Since I've known you, there's been some things changing. You're still pretty stubborn. But let's talk about the last 2 years, because I know you, along with a lot of the other guys at Top Guns, have gone through some massive shifts and changes and challenges, etc.
So let me add. I know where you're headed with this, but I want to also give a little bit of backstory. So from that first year, I didn't know what to do with all those leads, and so one of the things that you'll find is. Because there was some massive amount of transactions, you learn faster, right? It's not that I'm better or worse, or it's just that while like this year so far we've done 35 deals, right? So it would have taken me 3 years at this current, or 4 years really, at this current pace to learn what I learned in 1 year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my learning curve went like that, and then just came back down because I I literally bought a house to have a staff, and I went and got. I had a board of directors. I had that whole that whole thing.
So you had a massive organization. Yeah,
it was. Point. At one point we were 7-8 people deep, right?
Right.
And it was just a lot of meetings. Right. We had traction, we had all that stuff, and so we had a lot of meetings because there was. Truth is, I didn't know any better. Right. That's the number one answer. And you mentioned about growth. One of the biggest growth I think I've had to fight with is management. But within that year, I switched out. you know, I don't want to say companies, but team members about 2 times.
Okay.
And so they were massive changes. It wasn't like, you know, my acquisition guy. So now I had to go back to acquisition.
Right.
And my disposition guy, now I had to go do dispositions. And so,
right. And so what do you think you've learned? Because I know a lot of people who they start hiring people, and like you said, you had some management issues, right? So what advice would you? So what advice would you give to people that are trying to hire people now? You know, how to manage them properly so that they will stick and stay, because it does cost money to turn over people.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask that question to, but the number one thing I tell you is keep everything at an 8th grade level.
Right.
Try to make
keep
it to
simple.
where, simple. Because the thing is, as entrepreneurs and as I don't even want to say business owners, because I know some business owners that are great at management. As entrepreneurs and visionaries, we're just living in our own head, and so we expect people to know what we're thinking.
Right.
And so it's putting it all from your head to them and development, right? So that's the other thing, developing the people. But I will tell you, like,
I think that's the answer right there, right? Because, you know, I've run into that before also, right?
Yeah.
And have run into that is that, you know, like you said, as an entrepreneur, you can think of how you want things to go, right? But then you put people in place.
Yeah, and they mess it up.
It doesn't work that way, right?
Sorry, everybody that works for me.
Yeah, it only worked for me, right? And you're like, why don't you get it, right? Because they're not thinking the way that you are, right? And so you do have to keep it simple so that anyone can come in and follow the process, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they have to be a part of the process making, right, to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, they got to
them.
own it, right? That's the thing, the trick. So one of the other things I learned was, you read this in every book here and on every podcast. I'm sure it's been said in this podcast, but hire the people, not the position. You know, so you got to go for the person.
Right.
You got to, and you know, I've heard a lot of people who go and put people through all kinds of, I guess, basically a hiring funnel, right?
Right.
I guess, call me old fashioned, but I'd rather talk to them and say, hey, and on the phone, and you know me, I'll hang up on people, right? So if I'm talking to them and like just the first few questions, I don't like it. Listen, man, you're not the right fit. Click.
Right.
I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste his time. Or
right.
Person's
and so what are you looking for in a person when you're talking to them?
Right. So if I'm looking for, so for me, the most important position in my company is transaction coordinating, because I hate it.
Right.
So I've looked for a few core things. Number one thing is I actually went out and tried to hire like a paralegal, someone that is just geared for that. And then someone who just got a work ethic. You know, I mean, you look for honesty, you look for work ethic, and coachable. I guess that you can, you know, teach them a new way of doing things. But, you know, that's not the same answer for an acquisition guy, right?
Right.
You look for a pit bull. You look.
What do you look
hunter.
for in acquisitions now?
You know what's funny is I've actually gotten to the point where, because I've seen how some people, like I have had acquisition people that I would never have run that lead, and they do, and they close it. And so that got me into the whole different person. So what we do now is put them on a road. So we'll give a lead to one guy, and then if he can't close it, then we'll give it to the next guy. And then if that can't close it, then I'll try to come in and rescue the thing. But I've done it to where the aggressive closer will work for the aggressive seller.
Right.
The sit down and talk for hours guy is the guy that will close that deal. So now, do you know that going in? No. So sometimes what you do is just, that's why I say mess it up, man.
Right.
Send this acquisition guy, let him mess it up. Now you know for sure he's not a driver that you're dealing with on the selling side. So you send your social guy,
right,
and then he could probably close it.
Right. So you try to match up personality, so that the person can mirror and match that person, and they can build rapport a lot faster and connect, right?
And see, this thing, dude, rapport building is instant. I mean, I can tell you that as somebody walks in the house, they'll know right away whether they connect or not.
Right.
So people spend a lot of time and energy on building rapport and talking about the kids and the puppies and the football, and it's like, dude, how can I help you?
Right.
And then let them talk, and then listen to what they're saying. And as you're talking, they'll say something that's happened to you or someone you know, and you let them know, oh yeah, my cousin just went through that.
Right.
That's it. I mean, literally, the rapport building is you connect with them, and then at that point, either like you or don't. And the truth is, if somebody doesn't like you, they don't like you. There's nothing you could say to do that.
Right.
On that note, if that's the kind of person you're dealing with, fire the offer off.
Right.
Get them to say no. Because that's the other thing is, like, negotiation doesn't start till somebody says no.
Right.
So, you know, one of the things I do is I walk into a house and I look around, how much did you say you want for this again? And so they'll give me the number, like, oh, I don't think we're on the same page.
Right.
So I immediately throw the no out, and then we'll start talking. And now he's trying to get me back onto buying it. So as he's talking, he's convincing himself to come down. So.
Right. And that's crazy, because you hear in a lot of sales trainings today, like it wasn't this back in the day, but today you hear, don't throw your offer out. Right. And I think that's because nowadays salespeople are a little bit soft in that approach. They don't want to start with the no and start negotiating. Right. But back in the day, like you said, and that's probably where you got it from, is how fast can I get to the no, so that we can start talking about something.
Right. I mean, I guess having so one of the things I do for fun is I trade horses, right? So I flip horses. I buy horses at the auction, and we train them and then sell them. And I did that. Right. I don't do it as much now. When I was younger, I did a lot more of that. And so if anyone's ever been around a horse trader, I mean, it's all haggling, right? It's like if you don't haggle, you don't feel like you earned anything. So for me, that's kind of where I got a lot of the negotiations. And so you got this farmer that's 6'7". I mean, the guy's, chewing tobacco and all that. So you got to relate to him in his way. Well, I don't even know how. So it was never about relating. It's like, how can I know he wants my money. Mm-hmm. I want his horse. That's our rapport. Right. So I went towards that. And so there was a few things, and usually things start softening up as you start talking, and then they'll say something that you could pick up on and try to connect. But man, this guy didn't want to talk about the 49ers. I'm a 49er fan, by the way. So this guy didn't want to talk about the football or whatever. He wanted to talk about my money and his horse. Right. And so that's what we talked about. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about a minute ago about doctors, right? So the doctor, you walk in, like if there's anyone that you have instant rapport with is a doctor. You're there to get, and so how long is a doctor with you at any given time? 10 minutes?
Right, if that.
Yeah, and so they don't care about your Thanksgiving dinner and stuff. And so why are you here? How can I make you feel better? Mm-hmm. And so he does certain things to make you feel comfortable. And so you have to be a competent person to be able to know what those things are. So if you're in acquisitions, that's what you should show, right? You're like going through the motions of walking the house. And I know there's a lot of people that fire off offers over the internet. Over the phone. And that's great. I've done that. Mm-hmm. But that's because I felt comfortable with that seller, that he would be okay with that. Right. Not Betty, right? Betty wouldn't probably be okay with that. So it's finding who you're talking to, being present in the conversation, understanding what's going on, and what up to where can you push them, right? So that's what I think is one of the biggest traits. Right. What sucks is I'm really good at figuring all that out, but I can't do it with my employees.
Right. So let's talk.
There's where I was going. It took us a couple of minutes, but you were the best. As long as I've known you, you've been the best acquisitions in your company, and that's been a revolving door and a source of massive amounts of frustration for you, right? Because you just want to close it. You're highly results driven, and you just want to get it done. So over the last 2 years, you've been through massive amounts of transitions, in the acquisitions and how you treat your business and what how it flows.
Right. And some of it's, I guess, been a lifestyle change also. I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll talk about that. But
so you've grown, you've shrunk, you've changed what you wanted, you've changed your structure.
Yeah, so we went from having a bunch of employees, a house, and then got that team going, brought a different team in. So we went from all commission to all salaried to virtual and so we did deals across, all over the state, in fact, we did deals in Georgia. So I tried that whole going out of state and across the nation kind of thing. The beauty of it is I was able to learn a lot. And I made money. I won't tell you no, but I also spent a shitload of money, right? So to the point of the lifestyle, my wife has muscular dystrophy, and one of the muscles that's affected through that is the heart. So she has a lot of heart, I won't say problems, but definitely issues, right? So we spent New Year's Eve from 2018 to 2019 in the hospital. So we were talking about how I had to, instead of, and I love the concept of being able to do your business from the beach. For me, it wasn't doing business from the beach. It was doing business from a hospital room. Right. And so I at that point, I still had acquisition people. I still had, staff per se. And I was like, dude, this has to change, right? And it can't be about the machine anymore. It's about the lifestyle and how can I make the business give me the lifestyle we want. And I've heard that 1,000 times. And dude, sometimes you want the machine, right? Sometimes that's your lifestyle. That's what you want. That's what you want to get to. This business can give you that, right? This industry can give you that. For me, it was actually like, how do I do more with less? Right. Or make more with less. And so I shifted towards 100% virtual. So I started hiring people, both local, in the States and offshore too. Right. Filipinos, and I got a few people down in South America, well, Central America, who do, and then of course here stateside I have acquisition people.
Right. So what does the team look like? So it sounds like we have, and everyone's virtual, so no one's coming to an office or anything. We
don't
like
have
that.
an office anymore. No office. So that over here it's gone. Right. So, and I don't know if that's the deal breaker for a lot of people. It's $1,000 for an office somewhere, but it's just not having to maintain it, right? Not having to show up every day, because my wife is in essence in a wheelchair, so. In my house, I literally am a room away from her, right? That's the other thing. So if she happened to fall or something, I had to be there to pick her up or whatever. So besides, if I'm being very dramatic, it's also, I get to have lunch with her all the time, right? So that's the other side of it, that you get to be there. Don't get me wrong, it's involved. I'm involved in the business. I close the door, and they know that one thing you get from me is total separation. I literally will disconnect from the family while I'm in the office, but I would come out for lunch. I come out, so... here's the other thing. I mean, we spent, Jesus Christ, at least 3 days a month in the hospital for checkups, right? So with her different type of, with her disease, for different type of specialists. Right. So whenever I had a transaction coordinator and they left me hanging. And so I say hanging, it wasn't them. It was just the fact that position wasn't filled. Right. So I had to step in.
And you hate that position.
I hate that position. So I learned that. And so what I did was I made it to where I cross-trained people. I cross-trained where... I had two people that did the same position, but they also did separate things. So this person did marketing, this person did lead management. So now we have 8 people. Okay. And then I have, so that's another thing. I made acquisition people. I don't make them employees anymore. They're contractors, kind of like my tile guys, right? Right. I've got my main crew that works for me, and then I bring the tile guy to put tile, or I bring the carpet guy to put carpet. Okay. These guys are, I learned that also acquisition people are nomads. They literally can't stay anywhere very long. And so I just quit having to try to, kind of like keeping your girlfriend, I don't want you to leave kind of thing. Like, she's gone, right? And so I just gave up on that. And having been a salesperson, we had this conversation a few times. It's like, I talked to all the salespeople, and I was like, dude, how many hours in the day are you actually talking to a seller? Not comping out houses, not driving to an appointment, on the phone or in person, talking to a seller. And I mean, I never heard anybody tell me more than 2 hours a day. Right. And that's being active, right? Because a lot of people don't do that, right? And I was like, dude, if I pay somebody $25 an hour for a really high, what we call high-end closers, let me go down that path. And so that started working out for me pretty good. And then if someone needs to go out there, usually it'll be me. I still like going out. That's one of those things I can't just give up for some stupid reason. But we were on vacation, and I had a friend of mine who also has a real estate company. And so I called him and said, hey, can you guys, I'll give you $1,500 if you go look at this house for me and take some pictures. Right. I thought it was generous, but on that note, it worked. It bought a house. Okay. Just closed on it yesterday, actually.
All right. And so looking at your team, so let's say so that the viewers can kind of get an idea of, how your business works. So
transaction coordinator.
So a lead comes in, right? Yep. And then where does it go from there?
So we do a lot of what I call telecommunication marketing. Okay. RVM, outbound dialing, cold calling, and we do a lot of texting too. Okay. So I would call it, just for lack of a better word, the text team. They get the lead. And then they funnel it to. And then those are VAs in the Philippines, or okay, got it. And they funnel that to the lead coordinator, and so I have 2 lead coordinators that are basically kind of like a Slack, where we do Hangouts, but they're basically in the same chat, so they get that, and either one can respond to it, and so they take that and then evaluate if it's a property that we like. So sometimes we evaluate the property if it's a property we like. Do they have equity? So here in Texas, we can actually have a mortgage and guesstimate what the mortgage is on it. And then the third thing is they figure out what's the best salesperson to send it to. Okay. It's to us, it's not just a rotation, right? Because the whole round robin thing it's about being fair. I'm not a believer in fair. Right. I don't believe in fair play, right? Like when I say fair play, everybody should get a chance. No, the winners get more at bats. Right. So if you're new, we'll have you now. If you're new and you're starting to call out, what we do is have them do all the follow ups for us, and they're closing. We start giving them more. I mean, we reward the positive, right? So so they'll find out who to give it to.
And so let's go back to the lead manager. The lead manager is now they're taking a look at the lead, qualifying the lead, and then determining based on personality.
They don't qualify the lead.
Not qualifying, but
no. Okay. They literally just say, who do we give this to? Got it. And then they give it to the ISA. And so in essence, he calls.
Okay.
The ISA calls.
Gotcha.
Now he's got sales experience. These are the people I train all the time, right? So he's got sales experience. We tell him, here are the things we need to know on this situation. If we have 3 or 4 of these, check box yes, send it to the closer.
Gotcha.
And then there's one closer. And so he works 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And then so he's the one going out and talking and trying. A lot of times firing off offers over the phone. And sometimes to schedule me an appointment and go out and look at it.
Okay. So the closer, he's going on appointments as well.
No, he's in Colombia.
So he's just over the phone trying to close it if he can't.
He's an animal, dude. He's good. But he's in Colombia. So, and he gets paid a good salary considering where he's at. And he gets a bonus if we close a transaction.
Okay. Yeah. So that's
I think it's $1,000 for a transaction we close on top of so I pay him I think $15 an hour.
Right. Okay. That's good in Colombia.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty damn good in Colombia.
And you know what's funny is, so expatriate.
Right.
He grew up in Orlando.
Okay. So he understands.
It's perfect English, perfect everything, and so I mean, and he gets it. He's a salesperson, right? I mean, it's funny when you're a good salesperson, you need a lot of training. We talked about this.
Absolutely.
You get a person that knows it. I mean, it's just, what do you want me to sell? The camera? Well, let's right? So it's like the whole. I'm a big baller of Jordan Belfort to sell me this pen.
Right.
So that's how I interview. So.
Okay. And so for your team, so
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
So one of the beauties of how to, I don't think I shared this with you. You know how you hire a sales guy?
Mm-hmm.
When they're going through the interview, stop halfway, say, man, I don't think you're the right fit.
And see if they sell you.
And they literally will have to sell you.
Right.
And if they can't, because I said it, everything for me starts on the no.
Right.
Now, can you lose really good salespeople from that if they can't respond? Yeah. But it also shows me he's not fighting hard. And the truth is, you only need 1 salesperson, 2 salespeople tops. You're not trying to hire an army of salespeople.
Right.
Get the best one you can, right?
Right.
Now, another thing I learned.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you actually did that on our last hire.
I did it.
Yeah. You said.
I did. But
yeah.
It was intentional.
Yeah.
It's going to be intentional from here on out.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you didn't get that nugget, take that from Alex. There you go. Golden nugget dropped.
Take it actually on Bree as well.
Yeah. Do a takeaway. There you go.
Yeah. Another tip: once you train your VAs to do transaction coordinating, that I don't know if you guys ever read this book, but it's called The Checklist Manifesto, and it talks about triage, right? So how they have a checklist every time they go into OR, so they don't leave something inside of you kind of thing. So they have a checklist.
Same thing as a pilot,
right?
Right.
So that's where I was headed with that. The Navy spends a fortune in training a pilot, and the pilot messes up. He can blow up a $50 billion plane, $50 million plane. You don't just get rid of the guy.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest changes in management that I came up with. That's why, to me, it was important when I started separating the people. And a lot of people might have, that's what you do. But to me, it was all under one, because I hadn't read enough books, and you combine everybody and traction. We're all part of the big team, and it's like, dude, these people should never have to hear when I go off on this guy because he did something wrong. He's got nothing to do with it. And so I literally, detached the employee mindset of a acquisition guy. He's in a fight for his job every day.
Right.
If he doesn't put out, he's gone.
Right.
There's no contract. There's no. The sad part about it, and this is what we talk about, is you sometimes train your competition.
Yeah.
I've kind of come to terms with that at this point.
Right.
But I'll tell you that I've gotten some really good salespeople out of it.
Right.
And they leave, and it's okay. When they were here, that we made money, and I wish them the best. It's never so that mind shift was like, hey, they're gonna come and go.
Right.
And you could do all the non-competes and all that. Like, dude, if I don't trust the guy to begin with, I don't want him in my company. Period. Because to me, it's the people that help me feed my kids, right? So. Right.
And so for now, your team's virtual, right? And we said that before you had people in-house.
Yeah.
And you said that you were working on manage your management skills. So what are you doing to manage the virtual team?
Oh man. I just started breaking the task down and just teaching them on each task. And we started recording when I was teaching them, and said, like a screencast kind of thing, and said, just keep this recording if you ever. So instead of going out and trying to create this whole entire training module, it's like, just keep this recording. If you ever run into trouble, look at it. And if you don't get it, then call me.
Right.
And so just when they call me, be ready for the call. But I told them, like, you should be calling me 20% of the time, not 80% of the time, right? So this is your monkey. You got to kind of deal with it. So I train them. And then the other thing is just letting them make mistakes, And so I learned that when they make that mistake, they probably won't make it again.
Right.
So That's the other. I mean, just kind of letting them do the things, and for like a transaction coordinator, there's certain things that she cannot make a mistake on, and there's certain things that it's okay. And I told her, you can't fuck this up, right? These are non-negotiables. If you do this, you're terminated. Fire yourself, by the way. Just don't call me. Just delete yourself, right?
just walk off the job.
Yeah. The other one is so like if you're talking about marketing. They have a lot more flexibility to make a mistake, right? So, I mean, if they send a wrong message per text, they can literally say, hey, I'm sorry, this was meant for someone else. What I meant to say was X.
Right.
If you're cold calling and you mess up, you just give it to the next cold caller, right? So it wasn't like a life or death. And so starting compartmentalizing all that and realizing this guy's position is not life or death. This one's super life or death.
Right.
That's what helped.
Okay.
That's what helped a lot.
So it sounds like
them that way.
So it sounds like it's in the training. So your management it's in the training. You train them to stay in their lane, make sure that they check these boxes, and if they get outside of that, get lost, call you, but they shouldn't be calling you every day.
Yeah, and actually let me say another thing. So why I have 7 people in a small company is because I took the positions and I broke them down, right? So before you would want to have your guy marketing doing the texting, and then your lead coordinator calls, and then now the lead coordinator also has to be a good pre-screener, and they also have to have a little bit of sales skills and all that. And I just took that and said, dude, you just got to make sure your job is to make sure this lead gets into one of these 4 buckets. Right. Either it's a dead lead or send it to the closer, or so you just got to figure out where it's at, and then this lead belongs to you. You got to account for it every day or every week, right? So when we close a week out, what happened to this lead? Well, I gave it to Betty, and she was supposed to call. No. You're responsible for the lead. You're responsible for making Betty call. Now, if Betty's not calling, now we just write Betty up, and you let me know, and Betty goes away. Right. But you're responsible for the lead because Betty. So that's what happened, because when I took the responsibility away from the sales guys, they're held accountable by the lead coordinator. Okay. And not a manager, but the leads belong to us. Right. So if they don't work the lead, they pull the lead from them. Right. And the lead coordinator has that ability. But now he doesn't have to be a salesperson. So the salespeople are salespeople. This guy just says, hey, if you're not following up, I take it and give it to someone else. Yeah. Right.
Because it's a waste of money.
Yeah. Right. A lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? And so.
Yeah, I was just telling our
missed opportunity, right? That's the other one.
I was just telling our we have a virtual lead manager, and she was asking a question. Like, I see leads that are dead. Do they need to tell me why they're dead? By the way, that's why he's so happy right now. Right. So so I told her, I said, I said our average lead costs anywhere between $190 to $230. Yeah, I'd want to know why it's dead.
Yeah, absolutely. yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, just throw a little comment in there. I mean, if it's dead, it's dead. That's not a problem.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Know why that way when we go back and survey the system, that we can account for it.
Yeah, and from a marketing standpoint, I can say, you know what, we don't want this in there now, right? If we're continuing to market this type of lead dead, so it helps with that kind of information. And so, Alex, as we wind down. You've gone through some transitions. Some of it has been lifestyle. Some of it's been like maybe you thought you wanted something and then you didn't want it, right? So you've been in the business for a long time, more than most of our listeners probably, right? If you could go back to 1999 to 2000 and you could tap yourself on the shoulder and said, hey, Alex, I already saw the future. What would you do different?
Oh, man. That's a great question. That's a philosophical question. Man, I hate to say this, but I don't know if I would change a whole lot. Right. So in the spirit of trying to answer it for your audience, I'll answer it, but I wouldn't change anything. I think I lived a good life. I'm not checking out or anything.
What's going on here, buddy?
But 65 is the experience. 65 is the year.
That's right. So the experience I've gotten in life is what's got me here today. Right. And so I want to tell people, man, go get experience. Go do it. If you've been around me, it's like, why aren't you doing it? Don't think the Yoda thing, right? Do or don't do, don't try, right? Right. So if you're, if you're starting out, and I guess I'll answer it in 2 different levels, right? If you're brand new starting out, you already know what to do. Don't listen to this podcast and want to hear the silver bullet. There's hard ass work. That's what you got to do. Go grind. Leave your family at home. They're okay if you take a fucking weekend.
What about the work-life balance?
Tell me that when the bills come in.
You can't start out working 10 hours a week?
No. Yeah. I mean,
the 4-hour work week, the first week?
You can if that's what you want, right? I mean, the reality is you just can't bitch about not having the Lambo.
Right.
So the reality is that I don't want a Lambo. I want a pickup truck. I mean, we were joking about yesterday, right? Guy pulls up in a truck. Like, man, I'd like to take a picture on that hood right there, right?
Right.
It's about what you want. This is a lifestyle-driven business. You want the Lambo, man. I know people that have it. They grind, right? And the other thing you don't realize is how much money they have at risk,
right?
And they're okay with it. They have that risk tolerance. If you don't, then you can't have that. So what can you have? What are you willing to give up today? And when I say the work-life balance and the whole family thing, look, there's some non-negotiables, right? There's some things you got to be there for your family for.
Right.
But there's other things like, dude, go out and hustle, right? Go out and grind. Go out like in the middle of the night. And I'm not even exaggerating. In the middle of the night's when I do a lot of my marketing. And then if you're driving for dollars, dude, you drive first 4 transactions I ever did. And I mean, like when I bought them to flip. I took a course. I don't even remember how I ended up in that course. Probably paid for the drinks, and I was in that course sitting there in the back. And the guy's talking about how he's making all this money just driving for dollars, right? And so I'm like, well, I don't believe him.
Right.
There's no way that works. So I did it to prove him wrong. It's funny, but I did it to prove the guy wrong. I bought 4 houses in my neighborhood. Right. So what I'm telling you is like I didn't even have to go anywhere. I literally just had to take a different route home. Found a house and I tried to buy it. Right. With ever wanting to. It was like I was trying to prove the guy wrong. So, dude, prove your mind wrong. Because your mind's telling you you can't. Really? Well, prove it. Right. Try it and then say it doesn't work. Because you can't say that if you haven't tried. Right. You know, so try it. I mean, if you guys never been to their meetup, I can't believe how much information they give away for free. And I've said that out loud in the room, and I'm like, guys, whoever's here, you guys don't understand. We've paid thousands of dollars for information. And the thing about it is nobody does shit with it. It's like, dude, go do it.
Don't take the action.
Yeah, and then the second thing is like, if you don't know what to do, find somebody who does. I mean, I don't be greedy. That's the best advice is, dude, don't be greedy. If you don't know how to do it, get paid something. Right. You know, because like in this case, I said I'm being generous for paying a buddy of mine to go take pictures for $1,500, right? Right. But I made 45. You know, and so in the scope of things, not a big deal. So I guarantee you, if you talk, you want to have a mentorship with somebody and not have to pay for it. Go find deals and bring it to them. Right. They'll pay you to teach you. Right. Right. As opposed to us, I paid to be taught. When I started realizing, like, if I split deals with people, I'm doing all the work. That's how I got going. Right. And so, especially if you have no money, no credit kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of people out there with that. So I would say on the second level is if you're actually doing it and want to grow, one of the things I say is, and I've seen this a lot here recently, like, you know, if you have no ability to hold yourself accountable and have the discipline to have, I guess for lack of a better word, your business and your personal income separated. Because that's the hardest thing being an entrepreneur, right? Especially when you're starting out. So do I send the marketing money or do I pay the bills, right? So if you're at that point, stop for a second and analyze and just have a conversation. Lock yourself up in a room and have a hard conversation with yourself and say, look, could I be better off working with someone? Could I be better off working for someone and maybe getting a negotiated 30%, of the acquisition if I do my own leads, or 50%, or I don't know. I mean, whatever you figure out, whoever you figure it out with, right? Could you be better off being an acquisition person for a company? Because what's funny is you'll get, like, we are all looking for someone that can come in and close deals, right? I mean, and not only that, but we're even willing to train the shit out of you. Like, I'm willing to give you multiple, I guess for lack of a better word, a huge sales training. Right. Because, I mean, I've gotten at the point where, I just made it a thing that for me, if I'm a professional, I got to work on my craft, right? So to me, I feel like I'm a really good salesperson, and I just keep working that craft. And so I'm always learning, and I share with the guys, and I share with my team, with my acquisition people. And I mean, if someone worked for me, I've never had anyone. I train them so well, they literally go open up a company and compete against me. And that's happened multiple times.
And they're the competition at that point, right?
Yep. And I'm okay with it. I mean, the truth is, when he's working for me, I want him on point, right? Right. So I'd rather train him well. Right. And so if you're out there and you're struggling and you want to get to the next level, it doesn't have to be all by yourself. Right. Go be a part of a team, learn, and just look at it as a stepping stone in your life, as a transition, right? So. And
believe him, because he's trained up quite a few people who have done it. And so I think for you, Alex, that one of the reasons why that question is a little bit hard to answer is because if you go back to when you first started the big thing that he did, if you hear, is he took action, right? He wanted to open a construction business. He did it, right?
Well, you also went to 2000. We can go back to 2015.
Yeah.
So he gave us that advice. No, for sure.
Yeah. So he's always taking action, right? And he's moving on to the next thing.
No, even 2015, when my partner got sick, I had to make it work.
Right.
And it wasn't like I knew what I had to do. I had to learn how to market.
Yeah.
I learned, and who do I know that I would pay, who do I know that does what I need?
Right.
And I went to that person and said, dude, I need to do what you do.
Find the right person.
And he says, okay, so if you want to do that, we're going to split the deals. Mm-hmm. Okay, what do I do? And he didn't sit down and give me a 3-day course. He said, go driving for dollars, find these addresses, and then let's go from there.
Right.
It wasn't it wasn't rocket science. And that's the thing is, if it was 2000 or been 2015 or now, it was literally the exact same thing. It's not... This business is not that sophisticated.
Right.
We don't put fucking people on the moon, right? I mean, and the reality is you find a house that's ugly, generally. You find the person that owns it, and you ask them one question. Do you want to sell?
Right.
It all starts there.
Wholesaling 101. There it is, right there. All in one sentence.
Buy low, sell high. Buy low, sell high. Right. Do that all over. Do that all the time, and you'll be fine. I mean, it's not that... as much as we like to think that we know something that nobody else knows,
right?
The reality is we complicate the shit out of it.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
and
it's simple. It's not easy.
Dude, it's not.
And that's really the main thing. It's not easy. Like I said, but it's a simple business. But people
find a way to make it easy.
Right.
And that's what I guess. Hopefully, they're taking that. It's like, dude, you want to have a multi-million-dollar company at a high level. Go get around that company.
Right.
Go do hustle for them. I guarantee you, it's from the people I know, and I know a lot of people at this point in this business all over the country, we're all good people.
Right.
We're okay with you coming in, learning, and then making a step stone and moving on. But while you're here, you got to grind for me, right? But go do it, and then you go move on, and you do great, and we're all happy for you, right?
Right.
In fact, I mean, I that's what I said. We started Top Gun, and people were like, dude, you guys are competitors. Yeah, but you don't get it. I'm not really. Even if we're going up against the same house,
right?
You're competing against yourself.
Yeah.
And you've always said that. You've always said, I don't care about my competition. I care about myself.
Right. It's always me. It's always about me. And so
how does so I know a lot of our listeners are going to resonate with your story and everything. So how do they reach out to you, and contact you? If someone want to reach out to Alex.
I'm on Facebook, but I'm not a big Facebook guy, so I guess I'll just do the old-fashioned way. I'll give my number out. I can't believe I'm doing this, but
there you go.
I'll give my number out, and then the other thing I'll do is I'll give my email. But if you call me and say you want to pick my brain, I'm gonna say, well, what are you gonna give me in return?
Right.
Be fair. So if you want to pick my brain, I will do that, but I'm gonna hold you accountable for something, right?
Right.
And that's just how it should be.
It's a waste of time.
It's not about a waste of time. It's like, dude, don't call me to tell me your fucking life story. Call me to tell me I got a deal. I want to work it with you.
Right. Or
hey, I want to come work for you.
Right.
Then you got my full attention. And on that note, if you need advice, great, I'll give it to you. But I could tell you, you're not gonna like what I'm gonna say, because I'm gonna say, what do you think you should do?
Right.
Well, I should do this, this, and this.
They know the answer.
Then why you come to me? Go do that, right? And trust yourself. I think one of the biggest things is trust yourself. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: if you don't trust yourself, that's what you got to work on.
Right.
Go work on trust yourself. So my number is 832-552-2406. And then my email is alex@fasthousebuyers.net.
Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes as well for our listeners to hear.
But also put on there they got to do shit.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
and make sure, we're going to make sure we put in bold letters, you got to do shit. We're going to make sure that's in there as well.
I mean, too, I hope everybody takes that. Yeah. That's one thing is go take action.
Right. And so, Andy, you invited him on. So I know you wanted to thank him for coming on.
Absolutely, man. I love it. I love seeing what you've done over the last few years. I've seen all the changes, and who would have thought that the conclusion was you need to build the business around you and what you want. I think it was just a matter of finding what you want.
Right.
And I'm
that's key
happy
right
to see
there.
that you found it, man. I know you called me a couple of months ago. We're like, man, I figured it out. This is what I got. I want to share it with you. So we went and had drinks.
Yep.
We ended up beating up on me for a while, but no, it was glad to have you on. There's an insane amount of knowledge. Glad that you saw something in me to include me into Top Gun. Definitely before I was ready. He also kicked me out, by the way.
But why did we kick you out?
You probably needed it.
I was at that crossroads. I wasn't making a decision.
He would come and he'd bitch about the same thing every meeting. I'm like, dude, I'm like, this is not a lay on my shoulder kind of group. You need to be held accountable. If you don't do it, you're going to get kicked out. No, okay.
Right. I was at a crossroads, man, for like 4 months, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I appreciate that, because that actually did help me. That helped me. It's like, look, you know what? I just got kicked out of a group that I feel like I've contributed to, on some areas, but it was more of my corporate experience than anything else. But it's
a mindset problem, right? It's always your mind. It's always your mind.
100%. So, but no, definitely appreciate you coming on. Enjoy seeing where you've come. It was fun. It was fun. I told you this yesterday. Like, I love giving back, right? So that's why I put my number out there. Like, I'd love to give back to you, but I won't put up with you bitching. I mean, you got to come in and you got to put. If you told me, man, what do I do? Go drive for dollars. All right, I got 5 houses. Great. Let me show you how to pull comps. All right, let me show you how to send them a letter. Go knock on the door. Can you find them? Skip trace them. I'll skip them, trace them for you for free. There's a ton of services out there.
Right.
Like, dude, if we had So you asked me, there is nothing in the world that I would tell you. It's so easy right now to do what we do that it's ridiculous. You have no excuse.
Right.
Like, for us to try to find somebody back in the day, oh my God. So you're there now. So
you got everything at the fingertips. Yeah. So there you go. Alex De La Torre, thanks for coming on to the show. We definitely appreciate it. And for those that are watching this show, don't forget to go onto the podcast. You can listen to it while you're driving to work or while you're driving to the next house. Maybe you're driving for dollars. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up. And then, of course, if you're listening to this, go ahead and check out the video on YouTube. Be at the Wholesale Nation. But that's a wrap, guys. Y'all come back now. You hear?
Thank you.